everyone, this is Kelly and I'm here to take a look at the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. This is a deck created by Chase Voorhees. I believe that is, I'm not sure if that's how to pronounce it, but that's what it looks like. This is a deck that just came out and just started shipping. This is the first edition and the first printing. My friend Patrick had picked it up, shown me a few of it, and I was like, I think I was on the road or something where I couldn't really, I'm like, is this something that I need to order? Just tell me yes or no, because I don't have the time to look too closely, but just tell me if I need to order. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I trust you, you know me. And so I went ahead and ordered. So I really didn't know anything about it. I hadn't really heard anything about it. I think after I ordered it, I had seen, there's a couple people on Instagram that I'd seen posting readings, but it's just starting to filter out into the world as they're being sent out, and so I hadn't seen really anything about it at all when I ordered it. I have looked through this because I wanted to get a feel for it, but there's some things that I haven't fully processed through, so we're going to kind of do that together. The box, everything about it is beautifully minimal in a sense that, I mean, there's beautiful artwork in it, but it has a feeling. It has so far, and again, this is so first impressions, it has a feeling of being a deck that gives you enough to work with, but doesn't give you so much that it's going to hamper you. And that's, that's my sweet spot, right? I've talked about that with the Lost Forest. I think I talked about that a little bit with the Spacious Tarot. I've talked a lot about that with pip decks, right? One of the beauties of a pip deck is that you have everything that you need to read, but you don't have anything that hampers your ability to read your way. And so when they're decks that are artistic and have the use of color and the use of imagery, but can still find that sweet spot where it gives you enough but doesn't give you so much that, or like the Crow Tarot for me is like, that's just in front of me, so I thought of it. Crow Tarot is another one. It kind of functions, even though it's a Rider-Waite-Smith, it functions very loosely in this beautiful space of between an artistically rendered deck and a pip, I don't want to say that. Pip decks are artistically rendered. A scenic deck and a pip deck. It exists in that middle ground where there's just enough information but not too much. And I believe my first impressions of this deck is that it exists in that sweet spot between a pip deck and a scenic deck. This is definitely a scenic deck, but there's some space to play there. That is what I find I'm really looking for. If I want to get close to that, really perfect deck for me as a reader, it's that sweet space in between, because I don't read exactly Rider-Waite-Smith. And so if you're a diehard Rider-Waite-Smith, then then it's not really an issue. But if you are somebody who is a little bit, flexes a little bit right within that space, sometimes Rider-Waite-Smith for me can be restrictive in certain cards. We've talked about this. So that's what I feel about it so far. I'm going to stop rambling and we'll look at the cards. It's beautiful, minimal. It's a straight black box. It's a straight black edging. It's a straight black back. I mean, it's gorgeous in that case. I haven't shuffled this yet, but it feels like amazing cardstock. And I want to say that while I say it's a flat back, it's not flat. This is like a art card. It's just pure black. And I don't think the camera is going to really pick this up, but it isn't looking to me. If this isn't on purpose, then I apologize to the creator. But if you look at these cards, there is variations in the black areas, right? It's not a flat, digitally flat black box, but it could have still been digital, but it's got variations of tone in it, which tells me it's going to wear really well. It's going to age really nicely and get to feel really gorgeous like that. And I really like that. I like that it does not feel like a perfect, I don't know if you can see it, but it doesn't feel like a perfect black digitized back, which is also gorgeous, but this is different, and I quite love that. So it comes with just a pure black card. You could stick that in there and have this. I love void cards, and so I am tempted to shuffle this in to the deck and have it exist as a void card, the unknown. I may do that. So then he has this, like, you know, a card that's like the title card, so to speak. Thank you much for your purchase of the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. Tarot of the Holy Spectrum is a product of the last year of my life. At the onset of creation, my main goal was to create a deck that spoke in a cohesive color language. In the creation of the deck, I was inspired by the imagery of the Smith Rider-Waite and the work of Lindsay Mack, founder of Tarot for the Wild Soul, whose teaching served as a foundation for many of the visuals in the cards. Ultimately, the art in the finished deck is a blend of all the inspirations mentioned above and my own intuitively guided interpretations of the archetype. I hope the deck serves you for many years to come, and then has, you know, the places you can go. Nice little thing. So there, that's what we have. It's beautiful. It's just clean, simple, gorgeous. Love it. So I'm going to approach this. I'm not sure how I'm going to approach this because there's a lot of interesting things going on. I'm going to first just start by pulling out the Major Arcana. The Major Arcana I have already looked through. I think it is absolutely amazing. So I want to talk about that separately, but I did want to try to show a little bit where, so one of his premises, or one of his artistic boundaries that he set for himself, was very specific. So for example, the court cards, which I'm going to separate, I have already separated out, which I believe it came like this. I can't remember at this point. Okay. The court cards are all like one color, right? So you have all the reds here in the cups, all the blues in the swords, all the yellows in the pentacles, right? So very primary color. That's what I was searching for. The majors are what I would say is monochromatic with some pops of color, but they're basically monochromatic there, right? And then the suits, the number cards, follows the whole spectrum. So for example, this Ace of Swords starts in these purpley colors, goes into this blues kind of tones, it crosses blues on these, into the greens, into the yellows, into the oranges and reds, and into the pinks. Oops, I went too far. And it ends in the red tones, right? So there are two suits that start with the purples and go to the reds. Oops, I keep passing up, right? And then there are two suits that start with the reds and yellows and goes to the purple tone. So you have backward, you know, they're not going in the exact same order as the other two. Now, I haven't looked closely to see what that might say about it, but my point is that all of the swords are not one color, or so oftentimes yellow is associated with air. That is not the case in this deck. That was clearly not the intention of the artist. And in my, you know, traditionally we would have seen green probably in the pentacles, we would have seen blue in the cups, we would have seen red in fire, we would have seen yellow in swords. So that's not the point of this deck, and that's okay. Now, if it was just almost right and one thing was off, that kind of stuff does, and you know, kind of annoy my color sense. But this isn't that way. This is color being used in a different way, not in a sort of, these are the traditional colors of the elements. And the suits themselves, which would then be, let's say you had the swords all being yellow tones, then of course you would see that across all of the swords, and that's not the case. In all of the swords, we're seeing the full spectrum of color, which I think is absolutely amazing. And so we see the separating off in color with the monochromatic the primary colors, and then the full spectrum in the suits, which is pretty cool. And so, you know, as an artist, he's approaching each of these with this boundary of color, and saying, okay, well, if I take the Ace of Swords, and this is the first in this spectrum, how do I interpret this card's imagery and color and make those things work together to say the Ace of Swords? So it's a cool, like, sort of boundary to set on himself artistically. So we'll come and look at those. But I did want to mention that because I could see where people would be like, okay, well, why is the suit of Pentacles yellow and not green, and so on and so forth. He does not have a guidebook with this, not a pamphlet, not a little white book, nothing. The only thing that, as the website says, is that there was very specific color boundaries to the artwork, in which I just named. It doesn't go into any, this is why I did it this way. Now, I did find an interview with him and his wife, who he references as a, she teaches tarot and things like that. So of course, a lot of what he's learned is through her perspective of tarot. And so he references her, and of course the Rider-Waite Smith. I'll put a link to the interview because I thought it was really interesting to gain his perspective. I was glad that I had already looked at the deck before I looked at it, before I listened to it, because some of the things that I had seen, he also said the same thing, and I was like, oh, okay, that's really awesome. I will say that I am somebody who does enjoy understanding where the artist is coming from. Now, what I took away from his interview is why he was intending to do a guidebook and really felt strongly that he shouldn't. And it was for the impression that I already got, that he really wanted to let the deck be for each person what it was going to be. And I appreciate that. And he did say, like, you know, this doesn't mean that he wouldn't at some point make something, not in terms of an interpretation, but in terms of what was on his mind when he made it, and his parameters, and what did this particular image mean to him. I'm more interested in that. You know, I've been reading tarot for a very long time. I have a pretty solid set of ways that I personally have come to the images which is a mix of all the different things I've learned. And so I don't really necessarily need a guidebook that's going to say, this is what this sword is, this is this, this is this, this is this. I'm more interested in my current place and my path. I'm just more interested in knowing, like, okay, well, what was the thought behind making the Pentacles yellow? Or what was the thought behind this? Or what were you thinking when you did XYZ? Because I find it interesting. Not because I need it for interpretation, but because I find it interesting. So I would definitely have loved that. But I like also what he's saying, or what he was saying in the interview, because that really does, that mindset of wanting to create something that has imagery and has touchstones into the meanings, but is still open to become whatever it needs to become to each person, is exactly what I think you can feel in the overall deck. And so I appreciate that approach to it. So yeah, I wanted to at least point that out, though, that the colors aren't meant to be elementally colored. This is about color spectrum. Now, if you know anything about me, I'm a huge, you know, color is so important to me. And I do like elemental color associations, classical ones. I do something I do love, but this doesn't bother that at all. Again, if every color had been right and then all of a sudden one was flip-flopped and for no apparent reason, that would irritate my Libra brain. This does not, because we're working with color in a very specific way. And so I think it's really cool. Okay, we're going to come back to these in a minute. So we don't have any guidebook to look at because we're not looking at a guidebook. I have, as I said, already looked through the majors, and I absolutely love what he's done here. This is definitely a hero's journey. So I remember messaging to Patrick, I'm like, I absolutely love what has been done here with these connective stories. The same person going through. I just recently did a walkthrough of the Dark Wood Tarot, and it's the same thing where you're seeing this whole journey that this person has gone through. You know, this is something that you do see. It's not like it's nobody's ever thought of it. It's always, you know, tarot is talked about as the Fool's Journey, but it is beautifully represented here and very clearly represented here, and it was a treat to see that come through. Okay, I'm not going to like that. So let me just get in close where we can get a few cards in a row at least, and then we'll kind of build that way, I think. So here we have the Fool. Now the Fool is the only one that has, so I think all of the majors are what I would call monochromatic. I guess I'm probably using the term wrong. They might have one, so it's black and white, but then has one color pop. The Fool in the Lemon Scott has, or the infinity symbol has all of the colors in it, which I quite love. I really love the energy of the Fool. I love the stars here. It's simple, but it is evocative. She's on the cliff. She's stepping off the cliff. There's great energy to her, and I really love it. I'm going to go in and zoom one by one, I promise. I know this is going to be weird. This is just me. But I wanted to show you that we have the Fool, right? And then she is sliding into the position. She's embodying the Magician. And then she's embodying the High Priestess. And then she is in the Empress. I absolutely love this Empress. I love what she's almost blowing out. It's like this whole field of flowers and all over her dress as well, full of seeds and pollen and all of the what we need to sort of populate the world, and she's just blowing that out into the world, those intentions out. It's really gorgeous. I quite love this. But this is where I really wasn't, I will say, I wasn't super paying attention to the fact, I kind of was, but I wasn't really, I didn't have the aha moment until I hit the Emperor, and then I was like, oh, okay, I like this, right? This is the same person who is embodying the Emperor now. But what's interesting here is that while I would definitely say this is a female character that is going through this process, throughout this journey, I feel that her or their gender is super fluid throughout the journey, right? So I personally see a female here, and then see that female sliding into this powerful magician energy, but also feel feminine and masculine energy, and feminine energy, and and then going into masculine energy that's very gender neutral here, because this the first thing I thought was, oh cool, that looks like very kind of like an anime style emperor there, and then I was like, oh my goodness, that's the same person. So it can be all of these things. There's so much space here that I think is really cool to see. We see this in the Hierophant, where she slides into this energy of the Hierophant, and it has a very neutral energy to it. For me, there's a genderless a genderless feel to this card, right? So it slides into that sort of gender neutral place. And then we're back here with this beautiful Lovers, and she slides into place. I'm going to stop doing this and go to one by one, but I just want you to see how she's now into the car and she's driving forward, and this is like an astral self, and she's stepping into that astral self and coming face to face with the lion, and then she's it's this whole beautiful process, and it plays out over and over again. Now I'm gonna pop ahead, or it plays out through the whole major arcana, and it's just gorgeous. And then we'll see it in, she dies, right? And then she's resurrected again into Temperance. The Devil's interesting, we'll come back to that. But this is a beautiful sequence, I think, that really emphasizes this. So we have the Tower, and we have her falling from the tower, and then we have her in the Star card, looking to the water. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to take a picture of this and zoom in. Let's just see what this is, because I would be interested to know what this is. Let's see. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try to, I don't know if this is a fish. Okay. Sometimes if I'm not entirely sure, yeah, I'm still, it's a cup. Okay. she's got a cup that she's scooping into the water. She's gathering up her hope, or she's scooping up the stars that are reflected in the water, right? I just love this image of, it's such a different image of the star, and I love it. But what I love is the boat. So there is that sense of hope. There's that sense of navigation. It's like she's scooping up the stars that are reflected here, and she's got her vehicle of moving forward from this position, all in one card. It's just stunning. So she's fallen, she's gathering up her hope, she's gathering up her star that she's going to follow so that she can get into the boat. She goes into the boat, and now she's got the moon card, is one of my favorite cards. I love the boat here. I love the 3 paths of the deer, the wolf, and the horse that are here. And then we see that for at least this path through, right, she's gone onto the horse in the sun card, which is absolutely stunning. So again, it's the whole major arcana, but I felt like these 4 cards really highlight that journey there in a powerful way. I just love it a lot. A lot. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck. We can come back to that. But I absolutely love this, her sitting up and taking off her mask and having that moment of awakening. No matter how many times she's passed through the fool's journey, in this very moment, she's having that moment of awakening, which brings her back to the world card, which brings her ready to step back onto the mountain. I probably have these all messed up. Where's my Fool card? Oh, there it is. I got these all out of whack. And then she can be right back. So she has this moment of awakening. It brings her right back, which I always talk about how, you know, when you have that wreath that is there. Now he ties it in with the infinity symbol, right? But you have that wreath there that you're going to step right back into and start down the journey again. And so we literally can see she's had this awakening, and now she's confidently moving back to the hill, and she's going to start back into the place of this all over again. And maybe the next path, she's going to take the path of the stag. Maybe she's already taken those 2 paths, and now she's taken the horse. It's just really brilliant. I will definitely say that I think that it's brilliantly done. Okay, I know that was not the way we normally do a flip through of decks, but I think that, again, I'm kind of processing this through, and that's just kind of, sometimes decks require play to process through. So, you know, I'm going to go back through here, and you're going to see that progression this way too, but I don't know, I felt like the way to highlight it. So here's the Fool, which we talked about. Here's her reaching towards the lemon scott. Oops, do I now have it? Yeah, no. Then we have her again sliding into the energy of the priestess. I really like this almost pure white, and just the outline of her is like she's dissolved into the energy of the high priestess, which I think is beautiful. And what we really see is that pomegranate there. And then she has harnessed the lemon scott. So see here we have her reaching for it. In the Magician, she's literally harnessed it, which is really cool. Really, really cool. I just love it. Here we have, again, the Empress. I've talked about that. I think it's really gorgeous. I'm obviously using really too many times because I can hear it my own self, but it's absolutely beautiful what's being done here. The Emperor feels very Emperor. Again, I get Final Fantasy feel. I'm a big player of all the Final Fantasy games, so at first I was that, and it's like, oh my gosh, she's embodying, they are embodying, you know, whatever pronouns you want to use. It's not her, it's her experience as a human being, and that's moving in and out of masculine and feminine and everything that's in between, and the embodiment of those things. So I think it's really beautiful. Love this Hierophant. Absolutely high. I want to point out also, I don't know if I've missed it somewhere else yet. I think that's the first one we see. I really like the use of these sort of ghost forms. They're outlined forms that we see in some of the major arcana for sure. I haven't looked at the minors as closely. I really like that use of these outlined forms. I think it's really interesting to see what that might bring into the picture. So, you know, kind of watch for those. I love this Lovers card. So for me, the Lovers card is about choice, right? And there's so many ways that you can see this. You can see this as a mirror image. You can see this as a light and a shadow version of self, and the coming together to those things. But for me, it's about coming together and being united in yourself on a decision that you're making. So oftentimes we see three symbols. We'll see, say, that traditionally the angel, and we'll see a man and a woman. It's about that higher self, the subconscious self, the conscious self, and when all those things come together, that's the place in which we want to make important decisions that have long-term effects, like marriage, certainly in the 1400s when this was made. And so we see that here with the conscious self, the unconscious self. We can see that meeting of those two places as that point of higher self. But then there's all other kinds of things that this evokes as well. So it's like it's a simple image that gives you something to work from, but at the same time gives you a sandbox to really kind of go in different directions. And that's, I feel like, the real beauty so far. It's certainly in the major arcana. That's the beauty that I saw in this deck from the first go through. Like, I love this. Here we have this person speeding along. There's no tires. I don't see tires. Again, you might see something different. I see a car being driven that has no tires, but is fully going forward on the force of her own will and her own confidence. And she's meeting up with this cosmic self, which is going to enter into the cosmos and come into that fully connection with the primal self of strength and that healing space that takes place in that beautiful void. It's just beautiful. I think it's fabulously done. I really love this traditional, leaning into the traditional hermit. I love the use of the blue rings here. Obviously, there's so much that you can even lean into with in terms of the color. Like, there's a lot of purple tones here. Bluey purple tones. Now, not here. That's a different one, so that stands out. But we have a lot of that sense of purpley tones, and then we shift into this blue tone. Like, what does that mean? What could that bring to a reading? It's gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. See, now look, we've shifted into some blue tones here. I love the simplicity of this Wheel of Fortune. She is going to come up. She might come up and be he. This one's more gender neutral, but it's that sense that it's just going to rotate. And I love the simple 4-element signs on it. I do think it works. One of my favorite cards so far definitely is the Justice card. He does talk about in his interview how he was at a cemetery and looking at all these tombstones that would sort of look like in the stone carved. I've seen them before where they look like there's a veil or a cloth that's laid over. It's carved into the stone, but it looks like there's that cloth. It's beautiful, but it's also very reminiscent for me of sort of that seer energy, where sometimes you'll see paintings and images of seers that have sort of that veil draping over them. So rather than what you traditionally might see as a blindfolded justice, I love that veil there. I think it's gorgeous, and it's very powerful. I love reversed Hanged Man. I feel like I can't remember. There's another deck that reverses the Hanged Man. Is it Anna's deck that's not out? I don't know. I do love the concept of a reversed Hanged One. I love the Hanged One, but I love that in its upright position we're seeing it flip. We're literally seeing the different perspective. And that we're supposed to be getting with the Hanged Man. So I just love it when that happens. It's gorgeous. The Death is probably one of my favorite death cards ever. I love Phoenixes, probably my favorite. I do love Phoenixes and death cards, but this is probably one of my favorites. There is a restfulness here. There is a transition that's occurring here. There is a cycle here with the flowers that we know live a finite amount of time, then die, and then come back up again. I just love everything about this death card. It's stunning. Again, I love now, right? This is how I see this. Now in the Death, we have this coming back into being with the Temperance. And Temperance is also known as the alchemist, and sort of creating that person anew. If there was a death to the self, and now there's now a remixing of self that takes place in the Temperance. Again, he doesn't say his intentions, but it leaves the space when you know that it's this journey that you're going on. You can really see it flow from one card into the next. Now, the one for me interruption here is the Devil, and it's not that I dislike it. I actually enjoy Devil cards that are humans, because I do think that that's the case, right? The concept of the Devil made me do it, or of the monster, of these types of things. It's the othering of where we're abdicating authority, for me, or abdicating our responsibility, abdicating our choices, and we get something out of that abdication. And the real monster, the real devil, isn't something constructed outside of ourselves, but is in the mirror. So that's for myself personally how I approach the Devil card. And so to see a human in a Devil card, I really enjoy that. It works well for me. But what I will say is that, just in terms, like, you can see even when they shift, you can see sort of the same person going through the cards. Whereas I feel like in this one, it doesn't look as much like it's the same person morphing. So it kind of, for me, interrupts the flow just slightly. But then you also have to think about, what does that mean? Like, the devil is an interruption of flow. And so that also works in its interruption of flow visually. And so that's pretty cool. I've already talked about this. This whole sequence is stunning. I love the use of green with the tower, when you would think somebody would put red or those types of color, think of fire and destruction, but it's actually destruction that's part of the natural world. It's almost like nature is attacking this tower, which is kind of cool, right? I also like the light around her, because you do have the sense that almost like she's in a bubble. And then we've got here on the ground landed, right? But I do really love the interruption of what the expectation is in color. I think has a lot to offer in this deck. And I think there's so much to lean into in terms of color that I haven't even scratched the surface on. But I think that is going to play out in terms of readings and things of that nature. So Tower, again, I've talked about the star, and I love that the green. So it's because of this moment that she's able to get her, regain her navigation. So that tie-in, even with the green, I think is beautifully done. Then into the moon, as I already talked about. And you can see almost the color tones, right? So we have the really dark green, it goes lighter, and it fades into yellow. So there's just really pulling together, and we see it in the green glasses, right? Tying that in. Where does the green start? This is almost a blue-green, because it's going from the blue to the blue-green and then into the green. So you're seeing that sequence of color change through that progression here, which is just makes me very, very happy. And then into the orange, and then into the red, which in some ways is interesting, because we started there with the Magician, because we have that sort of fulfillment feeling in the Magician. But then, so the Magician, not even that, because that's purpley tone. The Magician is interesting in that it interrupts that cycle of the spectrum, and I think that's very I know that's deliberate, and I think it's really powerful as well. So that's pretty cool. Again, I talked about this. I absolutely love this card. The first thing I thought was, this is an awesome card. You think about Plato's cave and sort of coming out of the cave with the taking off of the mask. Definitely think of Matrix, which he mentions, and he seems a little bit embarrassed about. My head went straight to the Matrix, and I don't find it at all embarrassing. That is a really amazing movie that dives into a lot of these themes, and I think it works amazing. So yes, this is probably one of my favorite Judgment cards. I think it's awesome. And then the World card I already talked about. I love it when we have that connection. Now let's go back to the beginning again. I love that in the Enchanted Forest. There's several decks that connect that. But let's go back full circle, because this isn't the end. We're now stepping into the next. We've made an awareness. We've come to terms, and now we're stepping back through and into this journey all over again. And you just can see that so beautifully there. So yeah, I am a huge fan of this Major Arcana for certain. Now I'm going to back up a little bit here, just enough to again see all four, just because I want to, well, I'm going to back up a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to try to, let's just try to play this out a little bit here. So here is our swords. 8, 9, 10 swords. We have our cups. We have our pentacles. I'm just putting, this is the order that I put them in. It's not the order that they come in. So just forgive me. That's just how I always look at the suits. So then we have the wands here. We have the swords here. We have the pentacles here. And we have the cups here. So what you're going to see is that we have the green court cards here of the wands. And again, this we're going from red to orange to yellow and kind of working our way back to purple. But the wands hold that green color all the way through. So we see that bringing that color all the way through the full spectrum. The same thing, of course, with the swords. We have the blue swords that cycle through the whole color spectrum, because the energy of the quartz, of course, are going to be within all of the cards. Again, same thing with the cups. We have this kind of reddish orange, kind of orange red color. I love. We're gonna go through them, but I love that. For the cups, and then the pentacles being yellow, you're gonna see that color yellow. No matter what spectrum that we're following, the yellow pentacles go through the whole thing and tie that court energy into the pips. Love, absolutely love, right? And again, we have two of the suits, the swords and the cups. So this is an traditionally active and a traditionally receptive in going from purple to red. And then we have two, the wands and the pentacles, going from red to purple. Now I'm not sure, I mean, again, I believe, my personal opinion is that everything that he's done here, he's done for a reason, in a color sense, right? Not in a elemental color association, but in a color sense. There's a reason for that. I haven't quite sussed out what that is, but I think it's cool. But I think the important thing that I'm trying to point out here is that I love that we visually see the energy of the quartz, because the quartz for me are about how is the energy moving, right? And so to see that these aren't just static cards, but these are cards that also embody all of the energy throughout the rest of the cards. I know I'm not saying it well, but I love that correlation of pulling that color through, because we do have the whole spectrum of color in each suit. Instead of a unifying color of card, the unifying color is in the actual item, and then we're seeing that item go through the spectrum of cards. I probably said it 3 ways just then, and probably none of them made sense, but I really appreciate that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and stick these on here and go through them. The cardstock feels phenomenal. It is matte, but it is not sticky in any kind of means. It reminds me maybe of the 2nd edition Wild Unknown. I don't know. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think it's going to shuffle beautifully. Okay, so let's go through here. Ace of Wands. I'm going to keep the aces out so we can look at them together. Love the Ace of Wands here. It's just beautiful. I love this Two of Wands. The Two of Wands is about sort of making your path forward. Very often you'll see somebody's holding apart two wands. Well, she's using the two wands to row her boat. Like she's putting her direction into action, which is gorgeous. And then we have the Three, where she's already rowed out somewhere onto an island maybe, and now we have sort of waiting and standing for that energy to come back in. But I just love the act of using the wands to row in the two, that I think is really, now those things have to grow. She's waiting for that sun to fully come up, so it's got a beautiful progression there. The Four of Wands feels very celebratory. Feels like, okay, I've accomplished things. I can celebrate for a moment. But she's also, the journey's not over. She's still going to go forward, right? She still has ways to go. In the fifth, Five of Wands, which is a combative, disruptive number, you can really feel that disruption in the five there. Absolutely love the Six of Wands. I love the Six of Wands. What I like about this is that it's very modern without feeling too modern. If you know me, this is just personal preference, right? I don't have a ton of modern decks. I do have a couple that I love and I do use, surprisingly, but I'm not a huge fan of modern decks. But what I like about this, and there's a car in the major arcana, and you know, generally I'm not a huge fan of cars in my tarot decks, but it works. It's enough, but it's not so intrusive to me. But what I like about this is that none of us can really, the Six of Wands generally has somebody riding on a horse and getting a ticker tape parade kind of feel. You know, this conquering hero coming through the streets of Rome kind of feel. None of us really have that experience in a modern sense. But what about that sense of coming home after a job well done? That's what this feels like to me. But it also reminds me of the Kipper high honor. It's kind of going, that upward motion I also really like for the Six of Wands. Anyways, love it. Seven of Wands, again, we've got that holding ground feel. Can I also say that I like this person's hair in the wands? It feels very movement oriented, like it is moving and flowing and big, and it's just kind of, it's got very noticeable, like it stands out. All of this, the fire energy seems to be really moving and flowing within the hair, which I think is pretty cool. A very traditional Eight of Wands. I would say maybe a slight disappointment, just because I feel like everything is so fresh, and then this does feel very traditional. And of course, you know that I think eights as being really grounded, so I love that we can at least see the ground. Numerologically, I've never really gotten the idea of fast swiftness coming from the eights in the Rider-Waite-Smith systems, because it's just not the way that I read. But it's cool. I mean, it's a great card. It just, there's so many really, and maybe that's what's needed though, is some that are just kind of grounded, kind of attaching to those traditional images to sort of center yourself, and then let's go into a really different interpretation. I would have liked to have seen something different there, but it's beautiful, and I have nothing. It's not a criticism. It's just my personal reaction. I really like this energy of this Nine of Wands, which is usually that sense of being almost done. You're almost there, hold the line, but it's also a lot of dynamic energy that's going on. And so I really like the fact that she's sleeping and sort of prepping herself to pick up those wands and march off in the tens. It's like gather in that bit of rest, that bit of moment of breathing moment, because bam, there's a lot of energy at play here, and you're going to pick them up and stride off. I just love the visual of these two cards together. And then that brings us to the court cards. Very kind of Paul Revere feel to page. That's just what comes to my mind. And then we've got the Knight riding off. I like knightly knights. We have the Queen of Wands really stepping in. Almost, she's either getting ready to sit on her throne or she's just getting up, because it does look like there's a throne behind her. She doesn't necessarily look fully seated. It's like she's like, make me a really high throne so that I can just sort of lean against it like a stool throne, because I'm the Queen of Wands and I've got too much energy to recline back in a throne. That's kind of how I read that one. And then we have the very effusive King of Wands, which I love. There's almost something theatrical about him, but I feel like it feels very King of Wands, so I do love it. It brings us to my suit that I generally have issues with, just because, you know, Rider-Waite-Smith. Ace of Swords. Love this Two of Swords. Love everything about this Two of Swords. The Three of Swords, that is very interesting. I do like the lightning. I do like the sense of falling. As you know, I'm not, you know, I'm of the three being a growth number, and the swords is growth of the mind, and it doesn't always happen from heartbreak. So I don't read the Three of Swords as heartbreak, but what I do like about this is that growth is uncomfortable. Growth is difficult. Growth comes from both positive things and negative experiences. Lightning is positive and negative. It is negative if you're getting hit by it, but it also causes things to grow. So I really like the inclusion of the lightning there. It has, for me, the focus is a little bit more on the lightning than it is on the Three Swords through the heart. And so that becomes an aspect of it like it is for me. So I really love this. Again, what I think is great is that there is the space for me who might read this card a little different. There's a space here for me to go, and I think that it takes a lot of artistry to leave space to depict something, but then also leave space, and I think you really see that in this deck. Love this Four of Swords. Five of Swords, of course, it's that same sort of, almost like he's looking at the guy who's stealing the swords from the Seven of Swords, but there is that sense of confliction here. It's that disrupt. He looks confused a bit. The disruption of the mind, which would, five is disruption, swords of the mind. That works really well for me. Really love the perspective on this. I love decks and cards and artwork that shifts up the perspective, and I love the heads down perspective on this particular piece. I think it's gorgeous. I'm a big fan. This is so interesting with the Seven of Swords. I like the very clear line here, because I do read the Seven of Swords as being there's more going on beneath the surface. We've got to get to the foundation, the 4 plus the 3, in order to get the growth. We've got to get underneath it all and figure out what's happening. So I do love that. But visually, it's just gorgeous. I like the one coming out from here. One's being drug, trying to hang on to these. I just visually love that card. 8, again, traditional. I love this traditional. So that's why I can't really, I'm not complaining about the 8 of Wands, because that's a very traditional image. And I absolutely love it, because I love the 8 of Swords. She can easily walk away. She can easily cut herself out of the situation. She's just going to have to use her brain a little bit, right? It's beautiful. I love the background. I just love everything about it. 9 of Swords, very overwhelming card. I don't think of it as only nightmares. For me, it is mental energy that is at a high capacity. Even high creative capacity of mindset can be very overwhelming, and this really depicts somebody who's just got to bring it down a little bit, so I love it. Then we have the 9 of Swords. I will be honest with you and say that it's hard for me to really see what's going on here, and that works to my benefit, right? I'm assuming that, you know, somewhere in here this is a person being stabbed by swords, but I don't know. I can't, and somebody's going to point it out to me, and I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, I see it. But what I like about this is that it is very specific, because you do get the sense of all these swords being in someone. You get the color there. So it does feel like if somebody reads very Rider-Waite-Smith, they can get there here, but it is ambiguous enough that I can also get here, right? There's a lot of, this is the culmination of a lot of thinking process, and it's getting ready to, this to kind of come to its full fruition, and now something is going to reset in some way. So I like this energetically, because it's, for me, you might see something totally different, but for me it's rather ambiguous in terms of what's going on, in terms of what's being stabbed and all of that type of stuff. And so it works quite well for me. And then we of course have the pages, the knight. I love the movement aspect of the knights. You can really see it. You saw it in the other stuff coming off. Like, there isn't a sense in the swords and the wands, which are very active energies. You're getting the sense of movement there, which I quite love. I love this Queen of Swords. I love this Queen of Swords. She is like sword. She is seated on the throne of swords. Like, it's really, really cool. This is an interesting one. Now, this would be the type of card that traditionally not a favorite of, right? Having big speakers, again, the modern, the real inclusion of modern elements. But I do love the microphone here and the big speakers, and it's somebody is speaking their truth, knows and is seated solidly in their truth, so that they can then speak that truth loudly. And that does feel very King of Swords. So I'm a fan. Love this Ace of, I didn't keep out the other ones. I need to fix that. But love, love, love. This is probably my favorite. And again, I haven't looked at all of the aces closely, but this is probably my favorite ace. I just think it's so powerful. They look so powerful here. There's a connection to the, because here's the thing. I understand that cups, and I say this all the time, it's probably annoying, but I understand that the cups are about our feelings, and I understand that they connect us to other people, and then that makes us about relationships. But for me, the cups are also, first and foremost, the waters of the High Priestess. It's it's the belly. In geomancy, the water line is the belly. It is where our power source is. So the cups are so powerful. And of course, the way that our innerscape works and the way that we connect to others is so powerful. So, but this to me really speaks to the power of cups, and then to the power of the Ace of Cups. Again, I know I didn't point this out in other ones, but do you see that energetic line here? I love this. I just love the use of these sort of lined beings that sometimes are we're going to leap into. Like, I've got these all mixed up, so now I won't find it. When we saw with the Strength card or the Chariot card, it's almost like she's going to zip into that and come up here, like it's the movement, and then sometimes the drawing in, which we see with the Two of Cups, which is so, it's just gorgeous. Gorgeous. Three of Cups. Love his energy of hair just in general. I mean, I just love, there's so much energy going on with the hair in this deck. Three of Cups, yeah, beautiful, traditional and gorgeous. This is an interesting one because we have, I'm not sure what's going on with his hand, because he looks like he's cut his hand, but I'm not entirely sure that that's the case. He's got his hand on one of the cups. There's another cup behind him, but he's almost holding his hand up, like not right now. Like I'm still working with this one. I'm not ready for that one yet. So I just like it that it doesn't look like he's bored. I'm not a fan of Four of Cups that are boredom. 4 is a stabilizing number, and so for me, this picture seems like I'm in a stable space right now. I don't need any new energy coming in quite yet. I'm just having a break here for a minute. That's kind of how I see that. Now, somebody else is going to see that totally differently, and that is the power of good art, right? It's a very beautiful and traditional Five of Cups. 5 is disruption, cups are emotion. This, for me, is a heartbreak and loss card, and I think it's beautifully done. Here we have the Six of Cups. I do love the use of the photograph here. You know, it's that same feel that we get with other ones when we're seeing little children or things like that. We see the little bear here, but I do like that they're holding a photograph and looking at it. There's a lot of feels that that brings up. Seven of Cups are all of it is in the head, right? I've got to find where is, I need to clear my head of what is illusions, and I need to focus on what the dream that I really want to go and achieve. And so I quite like that all of that sort of needing to choose, needing to figure this out is all in the head here, because, and it just feels like, okay, I've got to make a decision. It's pretty cool. Love this. I just love this. I'm glad that the cups aren't, I'm not a fan of knocked over cups in the 8. It's just gorgeous. It's simple, clear, gorgeous, off on this new journey. I really like this use of a well in the 9 of Cups. So the 9 of Cups is about having everything, you know, your wishes fulfilled, right? You have, you're being able, you've made a wish, but look at this giant cup that's coming out. Like, is that not a wish coming back to you 10 times bigger than you would expect it to be? I love it. And then this is just gorgeous. I really like, it's just like people around a campfire. Everybody's connected. We don't really see gender here. We don't see, you know, a traditional family, you know, we don't see the mom and the dad and the 2 kids, what it would look like. We just know, we can see that there are people around this fire, and everything's kind of come together, and everything is as it should be. And it's just beautiful. Love it. And then of course we have the page. This is probably my favorite of the pages. I like the fish here. I like sitting by the ocean. It's just gorgeous. I love the Knight of Cups standing in the water. I haven't seen these yet. I absolutely love the Knight of Cups. Not running off willy-nilly like the Air or the Wands. And this Queen of Cups, perfection. I've talked before about having a moment on a mountaintop where I got hit by a wall of rain, and it's one of the defining moments for me, of just that sense of understanding a lot of things coming at the moment of this rainfall. And so that brings me into that space. It's just, but just as the Queen of Cups, it's stunned. She's by the water, pouring cups, you know, water pouring on her. She's just completely in her element, just like the Queen of Swords was completely in her element. It's really cool. Although a Queen of Swords completely in her element to me would have been piles of books around. But that's me. And then we have the King of Cups. I really love the act of service that we're seeing, or I'm seeing with the King of Cups. He's drinking, but he's also pouring. He's not being served by this person. He's in service to this person as well. And I quite like that for a King of Cups. Beautiful Ace of Pentacles. I love anytime there's seedlings or things like that. It really embodies the full potential with the pentacle, but also the spark, that beginning, but then the full potential in one card. I love that about when Pentacle suits do that. So we have the 2. She's got those. You know, what does she need to? Does she need to set something down to focus on one? What she's kind of weighing what she has in her hands. 3 people, quite a traditional 3 of Pentacles working together to perfect what they're doing. I really love this 4 of Pentacles. Again, 4s for me are about stability and a space to rest for a moment in that energy. It's not about greediness. There's nothing about this 4 of Pentacles that looks greedy. It's a time to be inward and to hold inward, not a time to be putting your resources outward. And this is perfectly embodies that. I really do like this one as well. So here we have the 5 of Pentacles, right? You could see, are they trying to dig up the pentacles? Are they digging a deep hole and they're going to put those pentacles in it? And it reminds me of the parable of the sower in the Bible, whether or not you are going to put your money in and it's not going to grow at all, or you're going to put it out into the world. What is going to grow? 5s are more disruptive energies here, that I think is pretty cool. But there is, you don't get as much for me as that sense of disconnection. But we often see 2 people We don't have a church here. So I'm just trying to process through this. It reminds me of Parable of the Sowers, and that things are disruptive, and how you are going to deal with that disruption is important, right? If you're just going to bury the problem, it's probably not going to get fixed, right? Are you going to take it and put it out into the world and get the help of this person to figure out what to do, and then you're going to be able to go forward in some way? That's kind of how I'm reading that one. It's interesting. It makes you think. Here we have the Six of Pentacles. What I like about this card is I don't see Six of Pentacles as being sort of a rich person giving money to a poor person. So for me, it's not so much about distribution of wealth. It's about the connection, that everything is connected. And when I give, I receive, that kind of energy. And so I do like that there's two people here. I like that they just look like normal, everyday people. It would have been cool to see maybe one giving and one receiving. That kind of would have been cool. But maybe that's the case. How do we know that he's not taking that? Actually, it kind of looks like that. Look, this person's holding it out like he's going to give it. This one has it grasped in his hand as if he could be taking it. See, again, ambiguous enough that I can go there with this. And you, because you might read the Six of Pentacles differently than I do, it may be about distribution of wealth for you, then I think you can easily see that. But I now forever will see somebody's giving and somebody's taking, and it's a beautiful symmetry and equal balance. Bam. Perfect Six of Pentacles. But this is what I'm trying to say about the power of art that gives you enough but doesn't hem you in. Beautiful, beautiful Seven of Pentacles. We've got to let things grow, let them come into full fruition. I just love the art itself. To me is just beautiful. The Eight of Pentacles, you know, all that work being done. In the Three, we can see that sense of mastery that comes forward, which is gorgeous. Here we have the Nine of Pentacles. She has everything that she needs to achieve what she wants to achieve, to put into. Normally we'll see sort of a woman all dressed in white, and she has a bird of prey, and she looks to be quite wealthy. We know that she has the time and the luxury and resources to be able to put into what's important to her. And I still get this sense here. She's got that sort of walled off space, like she could be in a garden. She has everything that she needs to achieve what she needs to achieve, to focus on the things that are important to her. And I can see that here. I love it. And then here we have, I love the Ten of Pentacles. Like with the Ten of Cups, you don't really see really specific people. We just know that there's everything sort of come together. All the fruits of our labor are here. I like the wine glasses and the wine bottles. It does remind me of the vineyards, which are self-perpetuating. You've done the work, and now it's going to continue to flourish. And that's kind of what we see traditionally in Pentacle cards, the generations of people, the vineyards, those types of things. And I feel like you get that all here without really specifically labeling what is generational. I do quite love that. Here we have the Page of Pentacles. Now, I did not notice this. I didn't look at the minors that super closely, but there's something that he mentions in the article or in the interview about the deer. So here we have in the deer kind of behind him, sort of in the woods. Then we have or him or her, it's kind of neutral there. Then we have the knight who is riding on the deer, right? So it's come together. Then we have the Queen of Pentacles, who's, you know, kind of in at one with, there is this merging here that's going on. And then we have the nature has taken over the King of Pentacles. He is fully like integrated and being subsumed by, consumed or subsumed or something by my nature itself, which is really pretty cool. And I haven't looked closely at the other to see if we see something similar. Page. Not as much. It seems like, again, I've loved all of the court cards, but you really see that progression there. I feel like I would have picked up, just because you can literally see vines growing on him, but he did mention that in the interview, which I did think was pretty cool, and I really like how you can see that out visually. So I did want to point that out. Yeah, I really, really, really love this deck. Okay, so then let's pull these up. I just wanted to look at, I do think that the aces are quite powerful. The Ace of Wands is literally just engulfed in flames. I love that it looks like this hand has just come up through through rock, almost like the strength of the mind. You really see the power of that intuitive power source is very apparent in the Ace of Cups. That mental, not mental as in the third eye, that's what I mean, more power to assemble or disassemble. And then the power here of that tiny seedling to come into that full potential. So I feel like these are very powerful aces. I read aces at the same power level, so to speak, as the majors, right? They are the full embodiment of their element. And so for me, these really speak to that degree of power. So quite love that. Okay. Do as I say, not as I do in this. I riffle shuffle all of my decks. If that's going to prematurely age them and rough them up, that's something that I not only am okay with, but something that I enjoy. But I have no clue how this will hold up to that. We will see over time, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, this really, maybe it's a first edition. I did notice, and just as a reviewer, right, I did notice there were a couple cards that have, it doesn't feel like dings, and so it may actually be deliberate, because as I said, these are not perfectly flat black, although there are, you see variations. It's something that I like about it. There were just one or two cards where I actually saw, like, where right out of the box, where I saw like a couple spots like this. I'm choosing not to see that as part of the variations of the deck, and I feel like that may be the case, but I don't know, I guess, unless somebody looked specifically at the King of Swords to see whether that's on there or not. But it doesn't bother me at all, because I think it just, the whole deck is going to wear and be just stunning. It feels, I would say, more like the first edition Wild Unknown. I thought maybe second edition, it does have some give to it. So it's not, I feel like it's a little, it's like maybe between the first edition Wild Unknown and the second. Second edition is my favorite because I'm a riffle shuffler. But the first edition will break in as you use it as well. This feels like gorgeous cardstock. But it definitely has that, and it riffles gorgeous. But it would, over time, if I sat there and riffled a ton, that would hurt my hands, which makes me feel, that's how I feel about the first edition Wild Unknown, which is gorgeous cardstock. But so that's just kind of what it feels like to me. So my point is, beautiful cardstock, and I love the black edging, because I would have, if this had no edging, I would have put it as black, obviously, with the black background. So let's give it another riffle here. I'm going to just lay it out in my sort of general tarot reading, just because we can see all of the colors come into play. And can we just thank the creator for the, you know, this whole time I've had the window open. Oh, I just noticed it. Because it's been zoomed in, I don't think it's mattered. But for the sake, I'm going to close this so you can see better. I hope that doesn't really affect things badly. Oh, well, it's too late now. I'm not redoing it. Okay, so we have that. We go to the past. I'll get them in here where you can see them all. Go to the future. Go to fire. Air. I love that death card. fire, air, water, and earth. Then for me, it's as above, so below. Do this, don't do this. Just depends on the question. It's gorgeous. Like it's really, really gorgeous. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. Okay, so there you have it. This has been a look at the Tarot of the Holy, no, yeah, Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, making sure I got that right. Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, again, it is by, and the artist, so it's by the same person, is Chase Voorhees. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. I got it really quickly. I can't remember when I purchased it. Of course, I did do it right. I know things were being sent out, so I did not pre-order this. I think when I ordered it, they were, yeah, because Patrick had just gotten his deck, so they were already going out. So I got mine really quickly. I purchased it sometime, I think, last week, and I was gone, so I don't know exactly when I got it, but when I got back, it was here. So I felt like it was a quick turnaround. Of course, I'm in the United States, but that was nice too. So there we go. I'll put the link below, as well as a link to that interview, because I thought it was quite interesting as well to get at least some perspective on his approach, being as that there isn't a guidebook there. So I quite enjoyed listening to that. So I'll put a link to that below as well. Thank you for watching. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.